Welcome to Actions and Limits. My name is Justin Atherton. I'm the Peak Performance Consultant for Confidence Unchained. With me as always is Paul Fortune. Paul is a mindset coach and the founder of A Call to Action. And together, we make Actions and Limits. Welcome to the show, the podcast where we talk about the actions we can take and the limits we create. Another week, Paul. Another week still on lockdown. I'm curious. You know, we can talk about personal as well, but business-wise, like how are you adapting? I know we've talked about businesses having to adapt through this process. So how are you adapting your business throughout this time?
Well, we kind of talked about this off mic the other week, Justin. We were talking about how, our mixers may go, to virtual as opposed to, well, there are virtual right now because of the virus, but it may continue that way just because people are cautious and they, don't want to get any type of virus or sick or anything like that. So it may get to that point where, it just stays virtual. So now I'm looking into doing mixers. I belong to a mixer where, it's different business owners for different avenues of business. And we get together and we kind of refer each other business. Okay. And, to be honest with you, this is something I'll need to adjust to because I love being able to be in the room with people. I feed off that energy, and it's different when you're virtual. Sure. I know we do this podcast virtually. We've always done this podcast virtually because you're in Texas and I'm California. So, it's just had to be how it is. But I'm sure, Justin, that if we could do it together in a room together, I think, we would do it just because of that energy factor that we get when we're together. And that's the same thing about these mixers that I get that energy. But if that's taken away, I'll need to adjust, and I'll really need to, really pay attention more, when it's virtual, because, when you're doing it through a computer and there's, 12 people talking, sometimes your mind wanders and stuff, and you really have to pay attention to what they're saying. You know what I mean? Because when you're in the room with each other, you can, I don't know, it's osmosis, you still, even if you look away, you still kind of paying attention. But like when you're doing it through a computer, it's a little bit tougher to get the message if you're not really paying attention. How about you, Justin?
Yeah, I get what you're saying because, I've been on some conference calls where there's, 15, 20 people on there and, someone wants to chime in and they're interrupting and then everyone's got a different background. So It's almost like this overload. You're like, is that a cat that just walked by in that person's picture? And that one's, hey, he's got a cool looking plant in the background. Yeah. So I think it's like, it is an information overload for our brains. And so if you're not really focused in on that, if you're all sitting in the same environment, all the background tends to fade away, right? Because we're all sitting in the same room. The background doesn't matter. But you're staring at a screen with whether it's 3 people or 15 people, you get all this sensory, overload, at least visually. And then everyone's audio is different, whether someone's, coming in and out with their Wi-Fi's checking out. So yeah, it's an adjustment to go through all that. And I've seen people doing virtual dance parties. Or I think later tonight I'm going to be playing virtual Pictionary with a group.
I'm in on that. By the way, in on that I'm going to be drawing, baby. I'm drawing. I'm in on the virtual Pictionary. I'm already in. So don't say that I'm going to be in
There
on
we
that
go.
one.
I didn't know you were jumping in, so that's great. So
I got the group text. I was on the group text
oh, I didn't
that we
look at the
got this
list
morning.
of people that were included on that. So, but look at that. And how quickly we adapt to these things, because we have that natural drive to want to interact with each other and be with each other. um, Humans develop to be social creatures, and like you said, you feel that for yourself. You're like, I want to be in the room with people. I want to feel that, whether it's energy or that vibe, whatever you want to call it. um, and I think we're all a little starved for that. And so figuring out ways to move through that process for me, the entertainment, like this interaction that we're having, and bringing our guest on here in a minute. JR will be coming out. This is all important social interaction, right? And I think a lot of people that aren't used to this type of virtual world are getting thrust into it. I think you and I have talked about it before. Businesses that were maybe dragging their feet on going virtual have just, hey, you just got to own it now. And if you're not in one of those businesses that is immediately adapting to the environment, you're done. And so,
Yeah.
I'm interested to pick our guest brain, Jonathan Rivera at JR, coming up on how he's seen things move differently, virtually. So I'll be interested to hear what he has to say, some insight. I know, we were checking out some of his content, his website. I know he deals with different podcasts, and I think he has a couple podcasts of his own that he deals with. So I'll be really interested to see how he's been moving through this process, and the things that he's shifted in his business.
Well, it sounds to me his business model is already there, virtual. So I don't think there's too much adjustment he needs to do, because it sounds like he's already doing it.
Yeah.
So he's already on that curve. So I'm sure there's some more adjustments he'll need to make, obviously. But
Sure.
Overall, I think he's already ahead of the curve.
Yeah. And if you have some of those things in place, then it's easy to just like ramp it up, right? And be like, hey, I got extra time. Can I put out some extra episodes? Can I, what extra can I do with this extra time that we all have in our hands? So, I'll be really interested to hear what he has to say. Before we bring out our guest, let's touch on our sponsor. Again, Frontline Standard Apparel is our sponsor for the show, and Frontline Standard is a veteran and law enforcement-owned patriotic apparel company based out of Texas. And with every product purchased from Frontline Standard, they donate $1 to a nonprofit organization that supports American heroes. And the best ways to reach out to them are on Instagram or Facebook. And if you message them directly and mention the Actions and Limits podcast, you'll get 35% off your order. And I'm wearing one of the shirts today, Paul. Frontline Standard. There's a patch right there. I really like this one. It's got we're all on the same team. So again, really comfortable gear that they have. And later on in the show, our segment Ask Paul Anything, when you guys submit a question and it gets read on the air, you can get some Frontline Standard swag. So make sure you're sending in those questions. So let's go ahead and bring out our guest. So our guest coming out, Jonathan Rivera, or JR. JR started podcasting back in 2009, and he's helped over 40 coaches, consultants, and personal brands launch their podcasts, to eager audiences. And they've racked up millions of downloads, grew massive audiences. And, JR has his own podcast as well called Daddy's Working. And he works with a company called the Podcast Factory. And he says this has all started as a passion project. And he knew some amazing people who were responsible for so many good things in life and business and wanted a way to help them more. So let's welcome JR to the show. All right, JR, welcome to the show, man. We're glad to have you. Your bio is interesting. You're trying to figure out what exactly got you into, your company. Like what started that? I know you started podcasting back in 2009. Tell me how you got where you're at right now, man.
by mistake.
By,
Totally by mistake. First of all, thank you, Justin. Thank you, Paul, for inviting me on the show. Thanks for letting me hang out with you and hang with your audience. I appreciate that. And I'm being 100% honest, by mistake. This was just like I was doing podcasting before podcasting was cool. And I never thought of it as a business. And what I was really doing was at that time, or it was really more around 2013 where it started getting more serious, but I was just hanging out with cool people, and the internet was full of people that weren't cool. And I was like, well, how could I shine a light on people who are cool? And the one skill I had was this podcasting thing. And so I just started recording conversations with friends, putting them on the air, and it took a couple of years, but it became a business.
Okay. I like it. I mean, being straight up honest about it, right? By accident.
Did you want to get into radio as a kid? Did you want to be a disc jockey or talk show host? What was your plan as a kid?
Kids have plans, Paul? No.
Well, dreams, whatever. They have dreams.
Here's a real accurate picture. I was a D student in high school. And when I look back at it, I'm pretty sure that I wasn't a D student, and my teachers just gave me Ds to get me the hell out of their classes. And so some people would say, oh man, you were such a rebel. When I think back to it, no, I was a reject. But the one shining light in all of that was TV productions, where I always had a straight A, because when I was cutting class, I would go over there and hang out. And so maybe that's where it came from.
TV productions, huh? Just liking being around that stuff, huh? That's good. And that's the basis of your business, right? Like being a producer for other people. Is that what you do for the majority of the time?
That's a part of it. And what I say is any dummy with a smartphone can have a podcast, because really it's easier now than when we were doing this before, where we had all the uploading, downloading, and all that stuff. And so we have a team of engineers, we have a team of writers, and where I spend my time is telling a better story. And how can we get our client's story to connect with the listener on the other end, so that we build a bridge to them working together? And that's really where my specialty is. And we call it direct response podcasting, because we're getting our listeners to take action for our clients. And that's where I spend my time. The audio engineers and the nerds in the back are the ones actually making everything beautiful and sound great and all that. Me, I just show up and I want to tell a good story.
I like it.
So basically you want to kind of teach these podcasters how to better entertain their audience, not just get up there, just kind of spitball and maybe be a little dry or boring. You want to have a little bit more of a spice into them.
That's actually a good point there. It's really about the story, and I've invested the last few years in getting my story game right, so that I could help my clients. And here's a distinction I want to make. My clients are not podcasters. My clients are business people who want to use a podcast as a platform to reach more people. Sure. They've got a business, they've got a story. Maybe their story isn't great. Maybe I can polish it up. Maybe I can make it better. But we're using, like you said, the story as a bridge. And I don't know if you guys have ever, and if you haven't, you should check them out. I work with Ben Settle for many, many years, hundreds of episodes we've recorded together, and he calls it infotainment. Wrapping information in an entertaining format is how you get people to consume it. And you don't want to be too dry. You don't want to spitball. You want to have a plan. And so that's really what we do, is just tell a better story that entertains people, gets them along for the journey, and gets them to take the action you want them to take.
Now, do you see weaving the story from episode to episode, keeping like a theme? Is that what you work on as well? Or is it, specific to the guests that you have on and crafting in there, your own branding with what they're sharing?
So most of my clients, and what I do is we have this thing called the content vault, and we say it's the evergreen vault of content. And the way that I look at this is, when you're creating this audio, it's an asset for your business. And I encourage most of my hosts not to do interviews. And it depends on their goals. Some people want to network and use it that way, but most of my hosts don't necessarily need to do interviews. And so what we do is we weave a story inside those first 8 episodes, which is the content vault. And the reason I say that they're assets is because they grow in value over time, because they're knocking out objections, getting people to take step after step after step until they take that action you want. And so the more people that hear it, the more people that are taking that action, whether it's get on your email list or whether it's buy your product or whether it's book a call because you're a consultant, you have to close on the phone. That is how we do it. And we weave the story to knock out objections, like 1 objection, 2 objections, 3. And by the time they're 3 or 4 deep, you know how podcast listeners are. 3 or 4 deep, they think they know you. And that's because we plan that journey ahead of time.
Yeah, no, I like that. You're building that trust, right? You're building that trust, that rapport, and having them be invested in what's going on. So yeah, I like that.
Is there a particular client that you suit the best? Is it in the coaching realm, or is it, somebody, a mortgage loan officer? What's your perfect client?
So for us, there's 3 verticals that we seem to be just kind of really entrenched in right now. And so we got financial services, whether it's insurance people or financial advisors or anything like that. We've got real estate professionals and mostly real estate investors. And then we've got fit pros. And those seem to be the verticals where we're doing the most work. A lot of these guys will have a high ticket offer. They will be doing sales on the phone or have a sales team. And they're looking to have people show up on a call asking the right questions, because you know this. I mean, you guys, I'm sure, have done this, where you get on a call and somebody's asking you stupid questions like, well, who are you and what do you do? And you know you're not going to close that call. That call is a waste of time for everybody. Sure. So what we're doing is get people showing up to the call asking the right questions. How can I work with you? How do I get started? What's the process? So we educate them, we knock out objections, and we get them showing up to the call, credit card in hand, wanting to work with you. That's the goal. Is exactly. And they're only going to do that if they know, like, and trust you. And so how do you determine that journey ahead of time? You plan everything before you record a word, so you're not like bumbling around and just hoping that it works.
Yeah. And I like what you said too. Your clients aren't podcasters. It's business people out there that are using it as another tool, another way to get yourself out there. And during this whole epidemic or pandemic, how do you see business going forward? I feel like a lot more people are jumping on this bandwagon, and everything being virtual. Businesses have to adapt moving forward. So if you haven't been in the virtual world very much, it seems like something that most businesses really have to adjust to.
Bro, I mean, look what we're doing right now. Okay, social distancing is happening, so we can talk about that, but we're together. And our listeners are together with us. And so there is a way to connect. But look at Zoom stock right now, bro. I mean, this thing has doubled in the last month because my kid is going to school on Zoom. We got circle time for 5-year-olds on Zoom. Everybody's meeting on Zoom. So yeah, if you weren't in the virtual world before, you're being thrust into it totally unprepared, totally kicking and screaming. But this is the future. I believe this is the future of business. And we already knew this. You guys have been doing podcasts forever. You already knew that this was a platform that you guys had to conquer. You had to be here because it's a way to get that connection, even if you can't touch that person. Being together like this is the next best thing.
Sure.
Also, it's entertaining. I mean, I have a fun time doing the podcast. I mean, I think that's the number one reason why Jess and I are doing it, because we enjoy it. We enjoy the banter. We enjoy bringing on interesting guests, and we enjoy the time together doing this. So yeah, we're marketing our businesses, but overall, we're having a good time doing it. So, and I'm sure you are the same with producing it.
Nah, I don't get into the production. I do have a good time with the strategy, though, and coaching my clients. But what I hear you saying, and I will mirror that 100%, is this idea that I call the stack. How do you stack things to get huger results? And so that if you can hang out here and we could have fun and we can make connections and possibly do business and we can entertain listeners, boom, 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 3 things, stack, 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 multiplying your results. And that's really an idea that one of my mentors taught me recently. I wish I would have learned this like 20 years ago.
Hmm.
But Mark Evans from Making of a DM, super smart dude, really, really smart guy. And he talks about return on effort. So yeah, this is fun. You can have fun right now, and you can market your business, and you can make new friends. That's big return on effort. Where are the
Sure.
activities you can get bigger returns on effort? And that's what I look at these days is ROE.
Yeah, I like that concept too, that return on the effort, because it does take, time and energy and resources to put this together. And so, really, honing in on the story aspect, like you were saying, crafting that strategy and, maximizing your return on effort, like you said, I think that's huge, and so, yeah, we're having fun. Yeah, we're marketing our business, you know, but how much are we getting in return for what we are doing? So I like that's your spin on it, that return on effort, and what are you getting back from that? So
And I'll share another concept because I've been a strategic coach. I think I'm 5 years deep now, Dan Sullivan, and he talks about unique ability. And when you start getting down into what your unique ability is, you can dial in what you're doing in your day and you can start creating maximum value. And I'll give you a sample of value. I went to Chicago recently, and Gary was the instructor. And Gary's been stripping out anything that wasn't his unique ability for the last 10 years. And he
mm,
says when he shows up to work, his value to the company is $10,000 an hour. And I can't even fathom that. And it's like, how? Because if he's talking to a client, that's the most valuable thing, but he's not taking notes. He's got an assistant taking notes, another assistant doing follow-ups and all that stuff. So it's just that value he's bringing into the company. So things like this, for me, for instance, my unique ability is talking to people, recording and writing. And this work here suits me perfectly to do all of that in a stack at one time.
sure. Yeah, that's an interesting concept too, peeling back the different layers and, running a business. There's so many little things that you have to consider and do that are time consuming. And so if you can, manage to, shift that to someone else and being like, hey, pay them this, what it's worth, and you're freeing yourself up, like you said, to have those conversations with people, to do the coaching. Like, there are certain things within the business that I'm still doing that I hate it. I'm like, I don't like doing this, and it's so time consuming. I feel like I'm losing money when I'm doing it. And so I think that's really important to admit and own up to when you can peel away those things. And I think that's a huge, strategy or insight that business owners can really hold on to, right?
It's gold, man. Like when you start thinking about those crazy little things, like even one of my things, like yesterday, uh, I'm giving away too much insider baseball here, maybe, but yesterday was Monday. Yesterday's my leadership day, so I meet with my copy team for an hour to go over copy and go over projects, and then I meet with my clients for an hour to answer questions and things like that. And even like that time with my clients is quite valuable. That time getting insight, giving them feedback and all that. But then I'm taking notes for the call, and then I'm downloading the Zoom and uploading it to Drive and all that stuff. And I came back from one of those strategic coach things that said, well, downloading and uploading really aren't in my unique abilities and aren't valuable. So team, how are we going to figure this out? And so we figured some things out like, oh, record to the cloud. Duh. Like real simple. I don't have to do that. And instead of me typing up my notes, I've got an iPad. I write my notes and I upload them right to Basecamp as I'm done. Boom, boom, boom. So now my time is more focused. And it's like,
There you go.
how many little things can we strip out of every day to make us laser focused? So we get, like, to me now, everything's measured by Gary. How do I get to 10 G's an hour in value? How do I do that? Because I need to figure that out.
Have you had to motivate some of your clients lately just because of the virus? Have they kind of been off, and and you've been talking to them, hey, look it, man, we got to keep focus here. Virus is only temporary. Keep the eye on the prize here.
Yeah, there's a lot of different things going on, and uh, there's fear, there's uncertainty, and I'll tell you what I've done. It's not so much motivation as to me, I lead with love, and my whole thing is about love, being a compassionate leader. really showing empathy in hard times, because I have 2 clients that they got 5 kids. How much motivation can you give them if you got 5 kids under the age of 13 at home? It's like priorities. The world is changing. And so what I've done is we got ahead of some things. And so we noticed last week downloads were about to drop everywhere. We started seeing it because we've got 30 accounts that we look at, and we're like, oh, it's coming down the pike. And so what we did was we got ahead of that. We dropped it. We dropped it inside the Facebook group. We're like, here's what's about to happen. If you're not seeing it, it's coming, and here's how to prepare. And what we told them was hit more channels, hit social media because people were scrolling, hit your email list because people were on their phones. People are out of their routines, and you know that's the way people listen to podcasts. They listen on their way to work. They listen to it on the gym or at the gym. So they're out of those routines. So downloads are going to drop. So what are we going to do? Well, they're now scrolling. And so not only did I prepare them, or we prepare them, I can't take credit because my wife, Cupcake, is really the one that let me know what was going on. But we prepared them. We gave them some tactics. And not only that, we demonstrated. It's like, hey, Sunday night before the call, I did this thing, and I learned this from the real estate investors. It's called ringless voicemail, and it's a technology that they use to get deals. And I thought, man, that's sexy. I want to use that. And how did I use it? I sent ringless voicemails to all my clients, and it's like, hey, the call's tomorrow, big call, important message. Get on the call, 1 p.m. Make sure you're there. Boom. The call was full. And I'm like, guys, I'm demonstrating to you that we need to hit other channels because this is what's coming down. And so it's not so much motivation as it is preparation and demonstration.
No, I really like that combination there, preparation and demonstration, because, people say, especially in the business world, you say, oh, he got lucky. There's no such thing as luck. It's when preparation meets opportunity, right? I love that quote. So the preparation, and like you said, being a coach, how important is it to demonstrate these tools and techniques to the people that, are looking towards you for insight? And, because if you're not showing it, how are they going to do it? They're like, well, JR's not doing it. Well, then why do I have to do it? He's not, living up to what he's saying. So then they're not going to act, right?
That's it, bro. And so I told him this, and I told him to be prepared for this because I told him I found a new gear. And when you think about, oh, he found a new gear, Gary V gear, he's shifting from 4th to 5th and going 120 down the highway. I was like, nope, I found a new gear. It's low gear. It uses less fuel and it's got more torque. And so I have been like all over them. So I reopened the Facebook group because I knew I needed another channel communication. I hit them with the ringless voicemails. I'm doing daily stories on Instagram. I even started a daily podcast and created a workflow where I'm going daily, show notes, everything. This is all my unique ability. Like I told you, an hour and a half, I got a daily show done with notes written, everything, production all done. And so I was like, guys, this is what we all need to be doing. And I told them, get wherever your people are. So I've got one client, Cheryl Ann, all her women are C-level corporate moms. Boom, she's putting videos on Instagram, and she hates video. And I'm like, that's what you have to do right now. You have to give little knowledge bursts. Other guys are following my lead with the lives. Okay, let's do lives. Let's do triage. Let's do what's going on right now. Other people are doing extra podcast episodes. They're all emailing more. And I'm like, this is how we can turn this pandemic into opportunity for us. Sure. It's like, stand out in your leadership right now. There's never been a better time to stand out in the light and be a leader.
Yeah, that's what I preach. There's a lot of people out there that are going to make a lot of money during this pandemic. And because they're thinking, they're plotting, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, as opposed to just, shutting down and not doing anything. You're going to be behind the 8 ball if you do that. Keep going, start learning, read, look at different podcasts, do your homework.
Take action, right?
Right. And that's
take action. Yeah. Take action. Less limits.
I have another hat that I wear, a camouflage DW, and I have a podcast called Daddy's Working, but the other thing is do work. Like, just do some work, get something out there. And I talked about this on my Instagram story, is like the 70% rule. Look, you got downtime. I don't care what you say. You've got some downtime. You don't have to go to work. You can't go to the gym. You got some downtime. create something, and create something at 70%. It doesn't have to be perfect. Put it out there in the world, let it be received, and then iterate and make it better. But do something, do some work, create something. This is your opportunity right now. Do not wait.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I have people that I work with, and I tell them, like just like what you said, do videos, get your name out there. And they're such perfectionists. They're like, no, the production is not correct, the lighting's not correct. I can't put this out. This and that. And I go, dude, if you keep doing that, you'll never put anything out. Stop getting out of your way and put something out there. Don't worry about it if it's not perfect.
I love it, man. I'll tell you, like I do these daily stories, and the reason why we talked about it is like I am obsessed with being a better storyteller, and so I write daily emails. I now do a daily podcast. I do daily IG stories, and one I remember I was out here on my patio a couple months ago, and this speaks to the production value. I'm recording this like real heartfelt thing. My buddy's grandma died, and I was just like, we don't have that much time in the world. Make sure that you're making the most of it and connecting with people. And it was a touching story. And when I look back at it, I had freaking spinach in my teeth, and I kept smiling. I'm like, oh well, hopefully people just overlook that.
That's funny. I think back to, when we started our podcast, Paul, like think about if we were like, oh, it needs to be perfect. It never would have got out there. We never would have started.
No.
And JR, Paul and I have talked about the progression, and I know you've seen it with yourself and your clients, but the more you do it, the better you get at it, and the faster you're able to pump these things out. So it's all about repetition and going through the motions and getting those reps in, right? So
Love that.
It takes a little bit, but
that's it. I mean, how are you going to get better? That's what I tell them all. And in fact, I recorded an episode on Daddy's Working called The Law of Reps. You got to get out there and do it. I mean, how do you build muscle? You get out there, you get your reps.
mm-hmm.
How do you get better at speaking? You get out there and you speak more. How do you get better at writing? You write more. I mean, there's no secret.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Do it more often, and you're going to mess up. That's what I tell to my clients when they're, holding back and going, well, I want to wait till like I get to this point before I step out and do that. And it's like, you're never going to be there, unless you start, whatever it is, if it's going out and giving speaking engagements or starting a business or whatever project they're working on. It's like, you have to fail. You have to mess up, and the fact that people are so scared to fail, that's the killer of more dreams than anything. Right.
Yeah. I'm going to blame that on school. Like I was never any good at school, and that's why I'm good at life, because I wasn't good at school, because they teach you that failing is a bad thing.
Yeah.
When in fact, failing is just feedback, and it gets you to course correct. Like, oh, I hit that bumper. I need to move a little bit over so I can get to my goal. That's the thing, is people are so afraid of getting that F. And me, I embrace it. I love it. F could be for failure or F could be for freedom. You choose.
Yeah. And, if you get that D, then it's just like, it was really an F.
They
just wanted me the hell out of there. That's what I know.
Well, I can tell that the Gary V's message resonates wholeheartedly with you, because I know he had the same problem in school. He wasn't very good in school, and your messaging is similar to Gary V. So, and he's a very, very, I love his messaging. He says the same thing over and over again, but it's so true. It's so true. He talks about happiness over anything else, happiness. So, and I think that's where your message is coming from as well.
Yeah, I actually, I'm rediscovering myself right now. Like, okay. So last Father's Day, right before Father's Day, I was at a real low. I mean, just like bottom of the barrel low. I live in downtown Orlando. It's just so easy to go out and drink and have a nice time every night. And I got so drunk I couldn't even function on Father's Day, and it was pretty embarrassing. So I quit drinking at that time. So it's been like 9-10 months. And what I realized is it made more room in my life for other things. And so on the Daddy's Working podcast, I talk about the 4 pillars of happiness, and it's family, faith, fitness, and finances. And so I wasn't living up to that. And when I took out the drinking, it made space for fitness. And as I got more fit, I did this thing called 75 Hard, Andy Frisella. Totally, totally difficult and totally worth it. But that gave me more room to start thinking clearly and start thinking what I was missing. And that's where I am now, is like, now I'm getting deeper into my faith, and my faith is connecting me more with my happiness. And so when I talk about having that daily show that I put out there, it was because right when we got the news, like things were shutting down and this was getting serious, I got a little scared. And I didn't really think that stocking toilet paper was going to make me feel better. So I was like, what can I do? What am I called to do? How can I do something? Because I mean, you feel out of control. And so what can you take control of? You can take control of how you feel and what you do. And so I launched what I'm calling the Daily Bread Project. And that's what it was. The light, the nourishment, the good in the world. Like, the media is going to beat you down. The media is going to feed you crap. The media is going to just pummel you and steal your soul if you let them. And I thought, well, the one thing I can do is I can share the light. I can be bright. I can bring happiness. And that's what I've been doing. And so since it's in my unique ability, it is bringing me happiness. And that's what I'm trying to do for all our listeners. That's what I'm trying to do for all our clients, for my family, is like, listen, we can find the light in this, and we can live in the light. And so light and happiness to me are one and the same.
Wow, that's pretty powerful, JR. And you touched on multiple things through there. The whole negative influences that we deal with every day, and removing those. Paul and I have had that discussion before. I believe that removing those negative influences, like you said, the media, shutting that out, is more important than finding some inspirational quotes throughout the day. But the fact that you're getting rid of that, and then you're being that positive information or light, like you said, for other people and your clients and your audience, and then you're receiving that reward of happiness as well, that's huge.
It's the stack.
It's the stack, right?
The stack, baby. How do you get a bigger return on effort? This is what I'm talking about. Is like, you can find those things, and then you can live in real happiness. When you find that, when you know that, you can find the happiness that is like not out there. Happiness is in here.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
We make it.
Exactly. That's self-derived. Another conversation Paul and I have had, that difference. People confuse happiness with fun. Now, you can go out and have fun and do things and have a fun time. That doesn't mean you're happy, And what's sad is these times that we're in right now, I think a lot of people are realizing that they weren't happy because the fun's been taken away. And so now they're sitting at home and going, oh man, now what do I do? I can't go out and have fun to trick myself into thinking that I'm happy. I actually have to figure out how to be happy.
That's difficult.
Yeah.
And one thing that I want to just go back to, and I want people to realize this, and I can't remember who said it now, but nature abhors a vacuum. And so if you take something out, it's going to be filled. And when we're talking about, that's why I shared the story of the drinking, and I took out the drinking and I filled it with fitness. And then I made other arrangements in my life. If you were going to get rid of things like the media, I want you to think long and hard before you do that about what you're going to fill that with, and be intentional, because it could be filled with something even worse. And so be intentional about making that void and having something to fill that void that is going to serve you and bring you happy, or bring you closer to your faith, or whatever it is that you're looking to do.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. And, the saying, you can't change behavior in a vacuum. You have to replace negative behavior with a positive behavior. Because like you said, it could be filled in with something even worse. You stop watching the media, well, then now you're drinking every day or doing drugs or who knows what you're doing, right? But and it goes into the whole concept of not using negatives. It made me think of when you're telling children, don't hit your brother, and then they hit them. you know, our brain doesn't really register the negative. So you have to replace it. You know, it's like, instead of don't hit your brother, it's be nice to your brother. You know, you're replacing that negative behavior with a positive behavior, because if it doesn't work when you just try to remove the negative and don't fill it with something. So I completely agree with that, JR.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So, well, so what projects are you working on right now? Anything new, like in the works, since this whole pandemic has been going on, or you're just doubling down on all this virtual stuff?
Yeah, I told everybody. In fact, I made a video for my clients where I told them I'm doubling down on podcasting. And the real thing that I'm excited about right this second is the Daily Bread Project, where I bring that every day, the dailybreadproject.com, and it's just positivity. And me, I'm a Catholic man, I'm practicing. And so obviously, give us this day our daily bread. There's no hiding that there.
Sure.
But I'm bringing like members of the Podcast Factory family. I'm bringing readings. I'm bringing positivity because I just, it's look, I'm selfish. It's for me to feel good, but it's also for other people to be able to share or to be able to bond with. And so the thing I'm most excited about is obviously the Daily Bread Project.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, I'm really just, I'm doubling down on podcasting because I believe that, like you said, things are changing, and we might not have stage opportunities. We might not have all the meeting or in-person thing opportunities. And so how do we sell? How do we sell without selling? And I think podcasting is a great way to do that. It's like just connecting with someone and being able to hang out with them and be in their ear and just have that bond with them. I mean, I've never seen anything as powerful as this, and I'm probably biased, but I've been doing it for a while. And I just think that really it's getting hot, and I just think it's going to get hotter.
Yeah, I definitely think that the times are built for it at the moment. So, so you mentioned your podcast and your website. What are some other ways that our listeners can get a hold of you if they wanted to work with you or reach out to you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram. I'm doing stories daily at Riverathan, Riverathan. I do stories, uplifting, positivity always is my goal daily. And of course, Daddy's Working podcast is my pride and joy. I've been doing that. I just recorded an episode today. In fact, a letter from 52-year-old me to me today. So a letter from me in the future, like just that bigger thinking. What have I accomplished? What obstacles have I gone over? So I would say those are the two main ones, is at Riverathan on Instagram and Daddy's Working podcast if you're looking for that kind of thing.
Okay. And we'll make sure to put all your stuff down in the show notes so everybody can reach out to you and check out your content. And, with the Actions and Limits podcast, we like to ask our guests, so what is one, especially in this time, what is one action that you can say that we could put into place right now that could make a difference in what we're doing in the world?
Gosh, I wish I was prepared, but give me a second because it's not going to be my quote. This is going to be from yesterday's the Daily Bread Project. It was from Katie Danger, and she said this thing that I just thought was powerful. If you're waiting for life to get back to normal, quit.
Mm.
This is a new normal. Stop waiting.
Mm.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful to think about, right?
She nailed it, dude. When she said that, I was like, yes, that.
But there's still people out there waiting for it to get back to, like, oh yeah, when this passes, I think our world is going to be forever changed, in certain ways, from this point forward. So there's no more waiting for it to go back the way it was. It'll never be there. So
waiting never serves you, though. I mean, we talked about it earlier. It was like, you're waiting for the right time to make content, or you're waiting. There's no right time. It's now or never.
Yeah, exactly. And with the other side of the Actions and Limits, what is one limit that you see that we self-impose on ourselves that you would have us remove?
God, there's so many limits, but it's like, let's limit the crappy self-talk that we give ourselves all the time, and give ourselves permission to be great, to be happy. So that's just limit that part, and you'll be light years ahead of most people in the world.
Yeah, I know Paul preaches that quite a bit. Limiting
Absolutely.
that negative self-talk. So yeah, I think we completely agree with all that. So JR, it was a pleasure having you on the show. I would, ask all our listeners and our audience to check you out and see what you got going on in your podcast and your website and everything. So, yeah, thank you so much for being a guest and sharing all your insight and the things that you're working on with your clients and in your business life. I think that, there's a lot of stuff to learn from what you shared with us today.
Justin, Paul, thank you so much for being so generous with me and allowing me to hang out here with you. And it was a blast. Hopefully we helped one or two people, and that'll be great.
Yeah. One or two is enough, right?
Sure.
Thanks, JR. Paul, what a great guest. I was the whole time JR was talking, I'm sitting there thinking like, oh man, like what could we do? Like it was making me think about our show and things we could do to tweak it, or like maybe some of the messaging. What were your thoughts on JR?
How raw he was. I mean, I didn't know he was going to get into, his substance abuse. I mean, he was pouring his heart out to us, and I truly appreciated it. It came across how much of a caring man he is. So I really appreciate the interview.
Yeah, talking about him drinking and seeing that as a moment. He's like, hey, yeah, this isn't going to work. But I like where it went from that point. Him talking about like, you have to fill it with something else, because we've talked about it before, removing those either negative behaviors or the negative influences that we have in our life. And it's so important to understand that you need to fill it with something else. But yeah, like you said, he was sharing, himself. I think he was being real authentic on what he's up to. And I liked what he was saying about, doubling down on being in the virtual world. You and I have talked about that businesses really need to be able to adapt. So.
Absolutely. And stuff that I talk to my clients about is nothing has to be perfect. Come on, just put it out there. Stop caring what everybody thinks, man, because there's going to be somebody out there that's going to resonate by your message, but they're not going to get your message because you're not putting it out there.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. It's put it out there. It's not going to be perfect. And we're, it comes back to we're our own biggest critic, right? We're going, oh man, like he said, he's like, oh, I had spinach in my teeth or this going on. No one else noticed. It's like, the things that we notice about ourselves. It's like, I think about, listening back to the podcast and being like, is that what I sound like? I'm like, man, like hearing your own voice back, people that have had that, experience and like, oh, I messed up that word or whatever it is, right? No one notices but you. Like, I guarantee, like, I don't notice stuff that like you say that's off. I only notice my own stuff when I go back and rewatch the podcast. So we're our own worst critic. And
but
so,
you did catch Charmin.
Well, that because it was funny. For those of y'all that didn't catch last week's episode, and Paul misspoke, and he had toilet paper on the mind. But we're our own worst critic, like you said. Similar to the things that I tell my clients. Just do it. Just put it out there. Take action. Stop having these self-imposed limits, on yourself, and put it out there. It's not gonna be great the first time. You might fail the first time. That's fine, as long as you learn from those mistakes and those failures and those setbacks and disappointments. Then it's okay. But if you refuse to learn, or you're so resistant to the failure, then that's when you're a true failure. So
that's deep. That's deep, man. Deep.
Well, let's wrap the show up with another segment of Ask Paul Anything. We had several questions come in. Make sure to email us at actionsandlimits@gmail.com. And if your question is featured on the show, you can get some of our Frontline Standard swag. This question comes in from Ginger in Alabama, and I'm pretty sure Ginger has emailed the show before. She says, Paul, would you rather do a road trip or sail around the world?
Definitely road trip. So I would get so seasick. And I had those patches under my ear one time doing a cruise. And I went to do wine tasting because I like to do wine tasting. And I couldn't and I have good vision. And I couldn't read the menu because the patch was messing with my vision. So
that
definitely road trip.
My initial first thought was like, oh, he's gonna say sail around the world. Like there's no question, right? But I totally forgot that you get seasick. But those patches mess with your vision. That seemed like they're toxic. Like what's going on?
I don't know, man. I was literally trying to read the menu of the different wines they had, and I couldn't read it. And I'm like, crap, man. And at the time, I was in my mid-20s. I'm like, oh, crap, I'm getting old.
You're like, no, this is just toxicity.
And then when I took the patch off, after the cruise, then my vision came back. Thank goodness. But yeah, so
that's scary.
Yeah.
So road trip. Where would you road trip to?
I'm a big baseball guy. I would love to road trip to every single. I know this is cliche. All baseball fans say, "I get it, yada yada yada." But I would like to do that. I'd like to hit every baseball stadium. I think that'd be fun. And then while I'm there, get the local flavor. I mean, I kind of do that for football a little bit, but it'd be kind of fun to do it for baseball too.
Yeah, I was about to say. I know you're working on all the stadiums, the football stadiums. So I think there's a lot more baseball stadiums out there.
About the same, about 30 some odd.
Is it? Oh, okay. All right. That works. So great show, Paul. Great guest, JR. I'm glad he could come on and share his insight and what he's working on and working with people. Like you said, we're not podcasters, right? I like how he put it. Each of us, we own a business.
But you and I are podcasters, baby.
Well, but no, like look what he said.
We're hardcore, baby. We're hardcore.
Jesus. Oh, Paul. But what comes first? The business came first, right? The
chicken and the egg.
Right. And then we're using this as an avenue to reach our customers and our clients, and put our message out there. So I like his defining that aspect and saying, I don't work with podcasters. I work with business people that use podcasts as a tool. So I liked it.
Very cool. For Justin Atherton, this is Paul Fortune. We'll see you next week.
See you next week.
Thank you for listening to the show. Don't miss an episode. Click and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on your favorite podcast platform and find us on Instagram and Facebook under Actions and Limits to stay updated on all our upcoming content. Continue to email the show at actionsandlimits@gmail.com for our segment Ask Paul Anything. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next week.